The killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar near Vancouver in the month of June earlier this year has spiraled into an ongoing diplomatic spat between India and Canada. Now remember, last week the Canadian Prime Minister, standing on the floor of the House, accused India of potential links to the murder, charges that India has rejected as quote-unquote absurd and motivated. WION has now obtained some exclusive information on the murder investigation which sheds some light on the moments leading up to the Khalistani terrorist shooting. This essentially answers the question as to what happened at the Gurudwara that day at the time when Nijjar was shot dead. In response to a query that was sent by WION to the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team, the Canadian authorities have shared the following details. That on the 18th of June at about 8:27 p.m. local time, the Surrey Royal Canadian Mounted Police received information about the shooting at a Guru Nanak Sikh Gurudwara. The first responders located the designated Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar inside of a vehicle, and moments later, Nijjar, who was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds, succumbed to the injuries at the scene. The Washington Post claims to have reviewed a security video camera which recorded the moments leading up to the shooting, and according to the Washington Post report, the 90-second video clip shows a white sedan blocking Nijjar's car in the parking lot while he was leaving the Gurudwara. Almost immediately, two men in hooded sweatshirts emerged from under a covered waiting area and moved towards Nijjar's car and then began shooting indiscriminately. This as the white sedan was leaving the compound. Community members have told the Washington Post that the assailants had fired at least about 50 to perhaps 60 rounds, of which 34 hit Nijjar. Not only this, the eyewitnesses also told the Washington Post that they saw two hooded men running towards the neighboring Cougar Creek Park. The witnesses have further added that they chased the assailants through the park till the duo finally got into a waiting runaway silver sedan. The eyewitness account matches with the information that's been shared by the Canadian investigating team, according to which a silver 2008 Toyota Camry was reportedly waiting at the 121st Street in the 68th Avenue for the two initial suspects prior to and while the murder took place. Now, the eyewitnesses have also described the appearance of the two suspects. They've said that the assailants wore a Sikh get-up, with hoodies pulled over their heads and masks over their quote-unquote bearded faces. But apart from these bits and pieces of information, there is a lot that still remains shrouded in mystery, not just with the murder of Nijjar, but also with the investigation that has happened in the aftermath since his murder. It's also crucial to note that the Canadian investigation team has not provided any specific answers to some pointed questions that have been sent by WION. The questions that we've asked the Canadian investigating agencies are these. Have there been any arrests that have been made so far in the case? If there are arrests, how many of the suspects are in police custody at the moment? Is there any Indian national who has been detained in connection with the case? And is there any charge sheet that has been filed in the court regarding the murder case of the Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar? And has any formal investigation assistance request been sent to the Government of India in this regard? Now, these are all pointed questions, and there is still, at this moment, there is no answer that is forthcoming from the Canadian authorities. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what, of course, is happening with the investigation of Hardeep Singh Nijjar's murder at this point of time, we're being joined by Mr. Carson Jarima. He's the managing editor at the National Post. He's in fact joining us live from Alberta in Canada. Now, Mr. Jarima, this is a case that has resulted in a diplomatic spat between India and Canada, unlike anything in the past. You know, the question that I want to ask you is this. You know, the murder took place, but since then there must be, one would resume, an investigation that is ongoing. Has the Canadian police disclosed any details as to have people been taken to custody and what's been happening with the investigation of the murder that took place of Nijjar?
I mean, as far as I know, I mean, the RCMP, the federal the police that are investigating it, they're investigating, but we don't have any specifics. We do know that they're investigating allegations that the Indian government may have been involved, but beyond that, we don't have. The police have not shared any specifics as far as I'm aware.
Right, now it's been more than 3 months since this murder has taken place. Now, there are reports that have emerged of a CCTV footage of the moment when the murder, in fact, took place. But why is it that the Canadian police has not spoken out anything much about the leads that it has? Because generally, when an act of crime happens, we would assume that there would be suspects whose sketches would perhaps be released. Some information would be given out by the police with respect to at least some part of the investigation.
You would expect that the Canadian police are notoriously stingy with providing information. Even when they have information, they don't share it. In other countries like the U.S., there's information is being shared constantly from the police investigators. In Canada, that is very likely. So it's hard to say whether the lack of information means that they don't have suspects. It could just be that the sort of unfortunate default to secrecy that the police in Canada have.
Right, but now that this case is completely blown off in a way that perhaps no one expected, and it is the Canadian Prime Minister, no less than the Canadian Prime Minister, who's spoken about this case, on the floor of the Parliament within Canada. I'm sure that there will be questions that will be asked within Canada to the Canadian Prime Minister, because he says that he made the statement that he did on the basis of what he described as credible allegations. But now it's time for the Canadian government to furnish some proof at least. Has the Canadian government been able to give any kind of proof at all?
It has not been given proof. It has been asked for specifics. On last Monday, when the Prime Minister spoke in the House and said there's credible allegations that there is agents potentially linked to the Indian government, and then it was very, it was taking a position, and a couple of days later, he's like, well, we're not really trying to rock the boat. And then on Thursday at the UN General Assembly, he gave at the UN, he gave a press conference where multiple reporters asked him, can you have any evidence? Can you provide any evidence? And he did not provide any evidence. And he's referred back to the legal processes. He's referred beyond the police, and it's in the hands of the police and the courts. Now, that seems a correct answer. I mean, politicians shouldn't be commenting on active criminal investigations, but he made the choice to act on it, to comment about it, and they did not provide any specifics. So yeah, we do not have any specifics. The government has been asked for specifics, has not provided those specifics.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, Mr. Jarima, also the fact that this has now become such a high-profile case, and it will have political ramifications even for Justin Trudeau within Canada. The question I want to ask you is, what happens if Justin Trudeau cannot furnish any kind of evidence to back up the claims that he's made in his statement? Does it hurt him politically? That is hard to say whether it hurts him politically. He's already pretty down in the polls because there's a number of scandals. People are sort of tired of with the government. But one thing the government bets on is that people don't take foreign affairs seriously. People don't care about foreign affairs, and as is typical of this government, all governments put domestic concerns above foreign concerns. But this government especially seems completely oblivious to foreign affairs when it is dealing with domestic partisan issues. It's not clear whether it will hurt him. It certainly won't help him. It may even help in some instances because although not all Sikh Canadians Sikh Canadians should not be conflated with Khalistani with Khalistani extremists, but it is certainly a voting bloc that is important to the government. So they want to be seen supporting that community. They want to be seen being aggressive with India. It's hard to say what the politics would end up for him. I think that's an important distinction that needs to be drawn, because there are a lot of Canadian Sikhs who are absolutely law-abiding citizens, and then you would have these separatist elements who perhaps want to foment violence to create Khalistan, as some would have, of course, wanted. But Mr. Jarima, you are the managing editor of an important paper in Canada. Give us a sense of how this news, of course, is being covered in Canada, because in India, this, of course, is a big news because of the allegation that was made by the Canadian Prime Minister is so stark and so bizarre and so wild that this is something that a lot of Indians, of course, are looking at very closely. How is this news being covered in Canada?
I mean, it was being very widely covered last week. It is being covered extensively in the papers, on the TV stations. I'm, editorials. I've written a number of columns myself. It is being written, and the position is there's skepticism but it's not, it's more just like, can you share us the information? The Globe and Mail, my paper, the National Post, as well as the Globe and Mail, both called for the government to share more information. So it is being covered extensively. It is being taken quite seriously. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Jarima, for joining us and getting us all those details there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.